Hello again, Steve here, and yesterday I talked a little bit about hubris, and one of the things that, if we look up the word hubris, it is this unnatural, pretty much, or unhealthy pride, which results in the coming up against the wall of nemesis in a way. A form of self-destruction in a way, if you will. And I think that nemesis is something to remember. And I'll just read off what most of us have a definition for it, but this is the first definition. I like it. A source of harm or ruin. Other things are an opponent that cannot be beaten or overcome. We often use it in that term, right? We reached our nemesis, we found our nemesis or whatever. Well, the one that I like is the harm. Well, I don't like it, but I think a good one is the harm and ruin. And in terms of our quality of life, surely we don't want to involve ourselves in something that's going to harm us or ruin us. I think there's something that can be learned from some of the older traditions, although they're full of all kinds of dogmas and so on. I think of Christianity and I think of Buddhism. I think Buddhism, or the teachings of the Buddha, is probably a little clearer in some ways. But they start with this basic concept, which appears to be things like "thou shalt not," and one of the approaches to some of these older teachings was to train ourselves in prohibitions, because a lot of those prohibitions, if we involve ourselves in them, we approach this ruinous and this this harmful and ruinous life that we can come into. For example, and you'll see some of these ideas in other traditions, old traditions. Like in the Buddha's concept, my understanding is they have what they call precepts. Precepts are, of course, the foundation of the teaching, right? And it's almost like "thou shalt nots," but they're certainly recommendations to live by as a starting point, because if you can't even get that far, if you can't build a foundation for a building, then you can't really build the building. Well, you can, but it's unstable and it's going to rot from the bottom with termites and so on. So the precepts are no lying. I could have these wrong, but this is my understanding of them from memory. Okay, no lying, no murdering, no stealing, no drunkenness, and no illicit sex. So to stay away from those things, right? Because the illicit sex is one of those things that is not no sex, right? Illicit is what we conjure that to be, how we, what's illicit sex. Probably shagging your buddy's wife would, for most people that would be considered illicit sex. So, but we can see the lying, the killing, the murdering, stealing, drunkenness, all these things end us up, or definitely end us up in some sort of a state of ruin in a way. And life, I think, is kind of like that. If we can avoid the harmful stuff, then we gradually, little by little, we avoid more and more of the harmful aspects. Then what isn't harmful is healthful and wholesome and supportive of us in terms of our positive quality of life. So, but we see similar things in, the Christian Ten Commandments. I mean, a lot of them are godly stuff, but the basic ones in terms of us getting along as human beings are things like covetousness and stealing and murdering and lying and these sorts of things. And you see there's a similarity, isn't there? So these things, I think, these precepts perhaps help us to avoid the nemesis that we're going to run into. I mean, is drunkenness a cure for anything? Does it really help us? Is lying a cure for anything in the long run? Is killing, stealing a cure for anything? Is illicit sex? That's a more challenging one, for sure. I get it, because that's something that we have to... You see, we can do without killing, we can do without lying, we can do without stealing, we can do without drunkenness, but we can't do without sex. can we? At least not everybody. Otherwise we won't be here. So that's a challenging one, of course. That's like, you know, the greatest addiction known to humanity is food, but we got to eat it. You know, the addicted to cocaine or alcohol and stuff, we could actually cut it out and survive. We can't cut out food as far as I know, except the breatharians perhaps can. But it's the same with sex. Right? We need sex. And yet, that's why it's called illicit sex. So there's, I think if we're honest with ourselves, we understand what that is. But it's these things, I think they do, and they've been honed down over the years. You know, even the fundamentals of common law. You know, don't harm anybody. Just don't harm anybody, right? So that means, you know, we don't have to have a rule against rape, because that's harming somebody. Don't have to have a rule against thieving. That's harming somebody. Don't have to have a rule against lying and killing. That's harming somebody. And we don't have to talk much about drinking, because that's harming somebody. It's ourselves and perhaps other people as well, but it's certainly harming ourselves in the long run. So these prohibitions, or old conservative ways of living, if you will, I think they help us in avoiding us running up against those self-created nemesis that end by destroying us or harming us in some way. What do you think? What do you think of nemesis? Is it something to be aware of to some extent, so at least that we learn a little bit about ourselves and a little bit about what to avoid, and thereby increasing the quality of our life? I hope so. I think so. Steve here again. Great chatting. Talk again soon.